Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 50 Shades of Tay. I'm Taylor Gonzalez, and my guest today directed the Oscar-winning Best Animated Feature Toy Story 4, co-wrote the Oscar-nominated screenplay for Inside Out, one of my favorite movies of all time, and brought us an incredible origin story for Optimus Prime and Megatron last year with Transformers 1. I am so excited to welcome Josh Cooley today. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm just such a huge fan of all of the movies that I just mentioned. They're all so special to me, and I can remember where I was the first time I saw all three of those films. Something that came to mind for me when I was coming up with the questions for you today was I think that Inside Out, Toy Story 4, Transformers, these are all movies that might very well be someone's very first time ever seeing a movie in theaters. And I was wondering, do you remember the very first movie you ever saw in theaters?
Uh, I think so. I think it was E.T. That's one I remember seeing. I mean, I was probably, let's see, 84. I was 5 years old when it came out, so probably that feels right.
Oh my gosh, that's the perfect one to have as your first
Yeah.
theatrical experience.
And I have a memory of my dad crying while I was watching it. I think it really stood out to me because it's not like my dad would be crying all the time. So it was I was confused, but at the same time I understood. And I remember asking him like, why are you crying? He goes, well, this is really sad. And so that really hit me.
Oh, that's yeah, such a special movie, and to have that memory with it, just perfect. And I just feel like your movies, the ones I listed, they're so special to me, and I know they're so special to so many other people. It's incredible. Transformers 1, which is what our main focus is going to be today,
Hmm.
has a 97% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes still, like after all this time. And that's just unheard of. Everyone has a problem with literally everything these days. So does that shock you that, even after all this time, 97% rating? And what was your reaction when you saw just like how overwhelmingly positive the reviews were and how much the fans were really resonating with this story?
I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to happen anytime you make a movie. Every movie, people are trying to make the best movie possible, and so uh, I will say that it's not like I knew it was going to happen, but I had so much fun making this movie, like almost more than any film I've ever worked on, only because the crew and the cast were so excited to be working on a Transformers film. I've never felt energy like that where uh, everybody was just bringing so much of their like nostalgic love to it, but also just like the fans of the characters and the world, and to do something new and that we've never done before with just with these characters in CG on just on Cybertron, and just kind of bringing like updating it a little bit, with obviously a huge nod to Generation One and the original artists and the original voice actors and everything, but just trying to like put our stamp on it as well. I've never had a crew and cast that were just so in love with the project as they were working on it. So I will say that whenever I've worked on a film where I've had that feeling, it's always been a great film. And so I was, as a fan, I was excited. And I was just excited to be able to release it for fans to see it. That's what I was just more excited about than anything.
Oh, that is great. I was excited ever since I got my first look. I was at CinemaCon last year, and when you guys
Mm-hmm.
came out on stage and you showed the first footage of it, it blew my mind because I didn't know what to expect when they said an animated Transformers movie, CGI. I was like, I couldn't picture in my head what it was going to look like. And then I saw that first footage. I believe it was the train sequence that was played,
Yeah.
and I I just could not get over how clean and crisp and clear the animation style was. How early on in the development process did you guys settle on the look of this film?
Um, we started to the second I started on the film, I immediately thought of issues that would come up. Like we've got metal characters on a metal planet. The second you put light in that scene, everything's going to reflect all over the place. And so it's like, how do you make sure that those characters read? How do you make sure that they actually um, have clear silhouettes? I'm thinking about all my animation background and just illustration background about how to make sure things read clearly, especially when there's a lot of action as well. And when they're all metal and they're all kind of look similar-ish, and that's why I was like, I want to make sure that this is a colorful movie, that not everybody's one color or gray, or so that you're not confused. I want to know I want the audience to know exactly who they're looking at, who's punching who, and why, and just for clarity. So I worked with Jason Schreier, the production designer, which was the Transformers One was his first time production designing a film, and he just destroyed it, in my opinion, and in a great way. And so we worked closely to create the look and to create just try to find a new kind of take on it that hasn't been done before.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I love the look of it. And I feel like it's nothing I could have ever expected or thought up of myself. So I was just like blown away when I saw it and just how clean I don't know how else to describe it, but it's clean. Like it just looks so neat and nice and just like I don't know, the high detail in it is just incredible. I was curious, what was your relationship like with the Transformers growing up?
So it was part of my Saturday morning every single week. And so, I grew up during through the 80s when you've got Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, all, Care Bears, everything. Like Saturday mornings were just like I lived and died for Saturday mornings. And so they were just part of my, weekly ritual. And so, but it was that original TV, the original cartoon, was the one I watched. And I know they've done so many different versions after that, and it just continued the story. But that original one was the one that I really fell in love with, and so it made me fall in love with animation as well. And so it's kind of coming full circle in a weird way.
Oh, that's awesome. When you were a little kid watching Transformers on Saturday mornings, did it ever cross your mind that one day you would be helping to continue that legacy and spread, the stories of these incredible characters?
No, there's no way I could have known that, or even dreamt it. Honestly, I mean, I was busy at that age making my own stories with my own toys in my bedroom. So, in a way, when I look back on that, I was like, oh, I guess I was directing a little bit and coming up with stories back, as a kid when you're playing. And it just feels like that as you're making a 3D movie, especially with Transformers. There were times when it felt like playing with toys all over again when you're kind of going like, oh, what if he tries to punch this guy and his head goes into his body instead? And, just you're kind of coming up with these crazy ideas the same way you would when you're playing with toys.
Oh, that is so cool. I know everyone has their favorite Transformer. For me, I know it's like super lame because I feel like this is like the easiest go-to answer, but for me, it's Bumblebee. I love Bumblebee. Everything about him and his characteristics and voice, everything is just so cool to me. Do you have a favorite Transformer?
This is the even more of a boring answer. It's Optimus Prime. The reason is because I can't imagine Transformers without him.
Hmm.
Without Optimus Prime, there's no Transformers. So that's my answer.
No, those two are perfect. And it's like, I know those are the ones that like anyone could say, but I think
Yeah,
you're right. How do you do Transformers without, I'm going to say either of those because they're just so unique and so special to this franchise.
yeah. It's it's like trying to do Star Wars without Luke Skywalker, in my opinion.
Mm.
It's having grown up with that. It's really hard to envision it any other way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So the cast of this film is incredible. You have Chris Hemsworth, Brian
Yeah.
Tyree Henry, Scarlett Johansson, like the list goes on and on of just, A-list talent. Who from the cast was the biggest Transformers fan?
Oh, that's a um I feel like I can't answer that question because if I do, then everybody else will get angry because they were all fans, all
Oh,
big
that's great.
fans of it. And man. Well, I'll say that Brian Tyree Henry, he had Megatron was his favorite toy growing up, which was crazy. So when I called him and talked to him for the first time, and he said, "I cannot believe you are asking me to voice Megatron right now." He said, "My mind is completely blown because that was my toy,"
Oh my
and I was like,
gosh.
That's nuts." And so uh, I said, "I hope you say yes." Then he goes, "Absolutely."
Oh, that is incredible. Casting this film, I feel like must have been, very stressful. And how do you
Yeah.
cast these characters that people in their mind for decades have had their own version that they grew up with? And, it must be like a very daunting task to be like, okay, we have to bring this to a new generation. We have to get, recognizable people for this film. Uh, Chris Hemsworth, love him in everything he does. I think he's an incredible actor. He's hilarious. His comedic timing, I Haven't seen
Totally.
anything like that in a long time. I just think he's incredible. I did not, when I heard he was going to be cast as Optimus Prime, I couldn't picture it in my head. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to see his take on this. So when I heard the first lines of dialogue, I believe back at CinemaCon, I was like,
Hmm.
oh wow, this is great. Like it way beyond anything I could have dreamt of. So what went through your mind the first time you heard Chris Hemsworth speak for the first time as Optimus Prime?
Oh boy. So just to back up a little bit, yeah, the casting this film, the second that I agreed to do it, I realized, oh no, like how, what am I signing up for just for the casting of it? Because I mean, Peter Cullen's voice, it's so iconic, and so it's my Transformers. It's what I grew up on with, and so it's like, how do we do this? And so, um, casting is very difficult. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that people just don't know. Because it's not just will this voice work or not. It's is that person available, and also is that person interested in doing it as well. So there's a lot of different things that are at play. Um, but when I heard Chris's voice, I was like, oh, God, it had the weight to it. It had the depth to it. It had the strength to it, obviously. And so, but also he's Australian. So at first, it's like, is this going to work? But when I talked to him for the first time, he said, I could do my American accent. I said, good, that's great. But we talked about not trying to copy or imitate the voice that Peter's done. It was more like, can we? We're doing Orion Pax, who is not yet Optimus Prime, so he can't have the wisdom and the courage and the bravery of Optimus yet. He has to be a little bit more a little more immature, a little more like not as refined, but a voice that would eventually get there, right? And so we talked a lot about that. And then every time we went to record Chris, I would go to Australia to record him face to face. You just there's a different. I mean, we could do it. I could do it over Zoom, and I've recorded people over Zoom like this before. But when you're working with, especially a lead and somebody like Chris, it's like they want somebody to work off of because you're only recording them one at a time. So I would read all the D16 lines and all the other lines opposite him, and I like to do it face to face because you just get a more believable read from that. So the first time we uh, met together and we were walking through, kind of just stepping through the script. When I give my jobs to kind of give an overall view of it and then to kind of get into specifics of it. And we got to the very last speech that he gives at the very end, kind of a warning to all quintessons kind of thing. And uh, at that moment, I even just his body, because he's standing up to read the lines, and his chest got a little, he got even more buff somehow. He's just puffed his chest out, and he started to have that cadence of the strength of the timing of it. And I literally got goosebumps on my arms, and I after he did the take, I said, what are you doing right now? Because that's different from everything else you've been doing. And he said, oh, I thought I'd just try something just to see if we can, how close I can get. And I was like, that was really, really, really good. And I said, let's keep trying this. Let's keep playing with this, and let's find the moment when we can really like start to play with that. And not, I didn't want the audience to be like, oh, it just changed all of a sudden, almost like it flipped a switch. I want it to be gradual. And Chris does, and I think it's a very underplayed performance that he does throughout the middle of the film, but it's brilliant because it really, once they start to learn the truth, he starts to become a little bit more serious, and then it's really that moment when gives the speech to the miners in the barracks that he really kind of steps into becoming. You see him start to become a leader, and he starts to play a little bit more towards the Optimus that we know until the very end. And people I know online have said like, oh, that's Peter Cullen. The very last line is Peter Cullen's voice. It's not. It's Peter's not in the movie at all. It's all Chris. And we didn't fuss with it or or try and mix it in together or anything like that. But I mean, he's got more weight to his voice. We probably cranked the bass a little bit, but it's all Chris's voice. And he just did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, no, totally, totally agree. And now kids are going to grow up and this is going to be their version of Optimus Prime. So that's such a cool legacy to get to carry on.
Well, the great thing is it's this, in the timeline, it's early on in the timeline of Transformers. So if they watch that, they get to see that and they go, great, that's cool. And they go into into whether it's the original TV show or the movies or whatever it is, it'll still feel right, which is
Yeah.
what I'm thrilled about.
No, totally, totally agree. His performance was incredible. And another incredible performance was Brian Tyree Henry as
Yeah.
Megatron. Can you talk a little bit about the collaboration process with him with coming up for the voice for Megatron?
So yeah, like I said, he loved Megatron as a kid, and so he was thrilled to play this role. After the first recording session with him, I realized. I mean, I've heard all of his. He's a phenomenal actor. I've seen all of his stuff and all of his voice work in Spider Verse and everything. But after the first session with him, I realized, oh, I have to up the level of this movie to match his performance, because he was bringing such weight to it and such um, power and but so much like truth and uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I think it's just truth. It just felt so. It wasn't. I didn't feel like I was making a cartoon, and I mean that in the sense of the that I mean that in a bad way. Like there's cartoony voices, that are just like, blah, blah, blah. but uh, but he was not doing that at all. And no, actually, nobody in the movie was. But like he was one of the first people we recorded, and so that was one of the things I was just like, oh, this is this. I need to make this even tighter than I originally envisioned, which is fantastic. I love it. It really challenged me. So to when we first talked, it was how do we get this character who we all everybody knows he's going to be a villain, that knows anything knows of Transformers, but in that original G1, Megatron is always like, I want power. He's just about power and control, which is great, but we couldn't have that be the only thing for this film, because in order for the audience to believe that they're friends, he had to have something more to his character. It had to be more fleshed out, more thought out. So Brian brought this real like levity and just companionship and just kind of, but also a very realness to the relationship, to where it's not just like we're best friends, we're skipping into the sunset. It's like no, it's like you get frustrated and annoyed with your friends. That they're your friends, but you're also kind of it's a real relationship because there's some animosity and some kind of stuff under the surface there. And so uh, he really he worked his ass off on that, and it was just a joy to be in the room and to literally direct him by staying out of his way. That's kind of how I saw it, because he would be giving this performance, and I'd say just do like 10 more in a row, and I just sit there and listen and kind of listen for the most believable one, which they were all great. All the takes were great. He made my job very difficult like that. I
Oh my
decided to go through all the lines and choose which ones to use.
Oh, that's so cool. That's a good
Yeah,
problem to have.
it's a great problem to have. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love all the vocal performances in this movie. I just feel like it was perfectly cast and
thank
everything
you.
flowed together perfectly. Loved it all. Were there any Transformers that you wanted to use that you were unable to use, whether it was due to them not being introduced yet in the line of the story, or there wasn't enough room in the script or time? Was there anyone that you wanted to throw in there that you just couldn't?
Um, there's nobody that I was like, oh man, I'm so angry that we cut them out of the movie. But the ones that I really wanted to do. There's no story reason for it in this film, but the ones that I would love to, have done event or eventually do, which is like is Unicron and or Primus. Getting the two of them. I didn't feel right. Primus is in the film, obviously, but it didn't feel right to have Primus be voiced at this point, because it's the whole like your imagination is stronger than what you actually see or hear on
Mm,
screen. It's like not showing the shark in Jaws kind of
yeah.
a thing. I felt like if you get down there and you see Primus and all of a sudden it's just like, "Hey, Optimus," it's all it's talking. I mean, if any, in my opinion, that's what you use Peter Cullen, but at the same time, that really does take away from the moment. It'd be
Mm,
really distracting. So uh, that's why I felt like there's no voice in this moment for this point that feels correct for to do Primus. Uh, but also, I just love Unicron, and I love Orson Welles. I just as an actor, as a writer, all that stuff. And so, uh, my goal would be, if there was ever a sequel and Unicron was in it, to somehow reuse the Orson Welles takes, and like, almost like the way they did with Alec Guinness in Force Awakens. They
Yeah.
were able to reconstruct him saying Ray or something like that. But I don't know. I just think that that character Unicron, he's a robot that eats planets. That's just incredible. And
Yeah.
so that, and then also Orson Welles, I just love that so much. So who knows?
All right. Well,
But to
fingers.
answer your question, no, there's nobody else that was like that I was like mad about or anything like that. I felt like we got a lot of characters in the amount of time we were able to do. So
Very cool. But fingers crossed that maybe one day there will be a reason that you can bring these characters to screen. Would love to see
never
that.
know. Yeah.
And then another question that I love to ask filmmakers, are there any Easter eggs that are in this film that people either haven't noticed yet or that people should keep an eye out for the next time they're watching this film?
There's like a trillion um Transformers Easter eggs, that if you are, there's the touch of the power line, the line from the You've Got the Touch. There's the let's see, the throne that Starscream sits in is a nod to his crown that he wears. There's like a lot of design stuff, just because all the designers are fans, and so they were working stuff in. There was one line that nobody has picked up on that I've heard of, which is the very beginning. One of the guards is a shot of the feet running to go capture Orion at the very beginning, and the line is KDK 12 to KDK 1. We're breaking, going into the archives in 5 seconds or something like that. KDK 12 to KDK 1 is a line from The Shining. It's what Shelley Duvall says to over the CB radio when she's trying to contact, uh, you know, the setup for the contact of getting somebody to come to the hotel to help them. And I'm a huge Shining fan, so I just wrote that in as the for myself.
Wow, I'm glad you pointed that one out because that one I did not catch at all. Now I'm a
Yeah,
little
I don't
embarrassed to
think
say I didn't
I
catch
think
that
there's
one.
only a few people that would probably actually. It's such an obscure thing, but
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
my gosh. Oh yeah, but as a huge horror fan, it's like, oops, how
yeah.
did I let that one pass?
Oh.
That's a really cool detail though. So now the next time I watch it, I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and it's kind of buried too. So as a feet these huge feet are running and there's music, so it's not out and obvious, but
Mm.
uh, makes me laugh.
So I don't know if you were still in the room at the Paramount Lot screening that I was at when the movie
Hmm.
was ending, but the post-credit scene with Megatron, everyone was cheering like it was the loudest pop I've heard in a theater probably since like Infinity War and Endgame. Can you talk a little bit about that post-credit scene with Megatron and just how you got that scene to come together?
Yeah. So that's the only time you hear the word Decepticon is in the first time you see it, and also the first time you actually see them like kind of owning the logo. So that moment of him saying Decepticon, I knew needed to happen somewhere in the movie, and we have it at the very end with Optimus saying Autobots, and you kind of understand where that came from. And so I wanted the same thing with Decepticon, and there's a part earlier in the in Act Three when he finally took the cog of Sentinel and put it in himself. And we had a moment there where he said the line there, like basically follow me, become follow my we're no more we're not going to be deceived or something like that. We'll be Decepticons. But it felt too much. It was too much. It's like, why are you stopping to say all this? Like just do the thing you're going to do. Don't start giving a speech for no reason. And so it felt right to at least show like it's going to continue and not just end with D16 or with Megatron and him just leaving kind of with his tail between his legs. Like at least like let's show that this is going to keep happening. And so we created that last little end button, and so it kind of grew out of that and out of Brian's performance, and honestly it was like, how can we make them look just like the most terrifying evil kind of army ever. And I have one I wouldn't call it a regret, but I kind of wish we didn't leave it till the very very end, because I don't think that today's audience is, unless you're a hardcore fan of something, I don't think they stick around anymore. For those like post post scene, post credit things. So, I mean, that audience, I was in that audience, and yes, that worked extremely well. It was made for that audience, but there's I've seen people online like have accidentally like missed it. You know what I mean? And that's such a powerful moment, and I'm glad we put it in there. But I may have moved it. If I could redo it, maybe move it a little like before the crawl or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I was so excited when I saw that scene. And yeah, like I said, you were there, I was there. The theater went wild for it. So it
Yeah.
was just incredible to be there for that. I know you can't say much, if anything at all, but I already can see the comment section and all the messages I'm going to get if I don't ask. Is there any word on a sequel for Transformers 1 yet?
Not that I'm aware of. I've not heard anything.
Okay.
So, the movie did not break the box office open. you know, it, um, it's doing really well in streaming from what I hear, but so it's not like it automatically got greenlit for a sequel because it didn't open massively huge. So who knows? I've been surprised in the past. Who knows what'll happen? Um, you know, Also, like there's the Skydance of it all with Paramount, and
Oh
who
yeah.
knows what's going to happen all there. So
Mhm.
I have no idea, but I have not heard anything. I have ideas. I have some thoughts of where we can take it that I'm really excited about. So I really hope that something happens. But uh, yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, I'm glad I
Hollywood.
asked. I know you can't say anything either way, but I appreciate you, at least acknowledging it. And I really do hope that you get a chance to continue this story because you did incredible with this job and these
Oh,
characters.
thank
And
you.
just, I know the fans, like I said, 97% fan score, everyone I've talked to that has seen it loves it. I think it deserves a sequel. So would
Oh,
love to
thank
see
you.
that. And then I have one more thing that I wanted to ask you about. I don't know if you can say anything about this either. But when I was on your IMDb page, I saw you have an upcoming project called Little Monsters. Are you allowed to talk about that at all?
I can tell you what I know, which is just that I wrote that script for Universal in 2020, I believe. And so I wrote the script. It was attached to direct it. I don't know what's happening with it at this point. But it was a really fun script that I hope something happens with. It was really cool.
All right. Well, I will definitely keep an eye out for that. Hopefully, yes, hopefully that becomes something as well. But Josh, I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your day to come and be here. I really appreciate it. And I'm just so thankful for all of the stories that you shared with us from Toy Story and Inside Out and Transformers 1. I
Oh, my pleasure.
literally can't wait to see what you do next. So thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Taylor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.